Hi everyone. In today's video, we will be talking about the importance of being physically active, more specifically understanding why it is important to live a physically active lifestyle. We're nutrition grad students at University of Cincinnati, so we will be taking you through these next couple minutes of this video. The learning objectives of this video is you all will be able to self-assess your knowledge of physical activity and why it is important, identify at least 3 potential risks of sedentary behavior or low physical activity levels, demonstrate how to determine activity level by measuring your own heart rate, and also you should be able to describe your primary barriers to introducing physical activity into your daily lives. To start this video off, we really wanted to get you guys thinking with this critical thinking activity. So we want you to think about each of these questions below. If you want to pause the video so you can read each one of these questions and then think about it, we just want you to get your minds thinking and think about and potentially write down your responses if you have a paper and pen. So the questions are you aware of the benefits of physical activity? What kinds of physical activity have you heard about? What kinds of physical activity do you do, if any? And do you think that physical activity is important? Why or why not? So just remember that there's no right or wrong answer here. These are your own personal thoughts. And again, feel free to pause the video at this time just so you can think about it and write all of your answers down to these questions.
Alrighty, so from here, now that we've had you guys start to think about physical activity, we're going to be talking about why physical activity is important, so covering the risks of sedentary lifestyle and the benefits of being physically active. So in terms of risks of physical inactivity or sedentary behavior is pretty much a silent killer, so approximately 2 to 3 million deaths occur each year that are attributed to physical inactivity. And that sedentary lifestyle increases the causes of all the mortalities for those deaths. Also increased risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and obesity, as well as osteoporosis, because we're not using our muscles and bones, and also depression and anxiety. So in terms of the benefits of physical activity, there's going to be an overall improvement in health. So we're going to have a reduction in those risks of chronic disease conditions that we just talked about. There's going to be an improvement in weight control because we're going to be more active and burning more calories. In terms of mental health, we're actually going to be releasing endorphins during physical activity, which will help us good and also helps improve our confidence. And for sleep quality, it's actually going to improve because our bodies need to rest and recover after being physically active. So our body's going to reach a deeper level of sleep state. And a fun little fact is that just by adding 1,000 steps per day, we have a 5% lower risk for hypertension, a 10% lower risk for diabetes, and a 13% lower risk for obesity.
This is the handout that we would have given to you had this been in person, but it just kind of summarizes all of the things that we just talked about. So it has those 2 facts that we mentioned about adding 1,000 steps per day and what that can do for you in regards to chronic disease. It also has the little fact that says, there are 2 to 3 million more deaths a year related to physical inactivity. So just something to watch out for. And then also we can see here on the right side is that there are all of those factors that physical activity can reduce the risk of. So things like heart disease, diabetes, all of those things that we just mentioned in the previous slides. And similarly, what physical activity can improve, which would be mental health, weight control, any existing chronic illness, it can definitely help with that condition. So again, this is just a handout that we would have given you, but instead we just put it in our video for you to look at.
All right, now we're going to cover an activity that teaches you how to measure your heart rate. So why is measuring your heart rate important? Many people actually have a heart rate that is higher than it should be. So knowing your heart rate can help you measure your heart health and your fitness levels. So what is considered a normal heart rate? Normally, we want to keep our heart rate between 60 to 100 beats per minute when we're like doing normal activities throughout the day. If you're going to be exercising and stuff, it'll become more elevated. But during our normal day-to-day activity, we want to stay in that 60 to 100 beats per minute range. Now, beats per minute means how many times your heart beats every minute. And a lower heart rate or a lower resting heart rate is considered better because it means your heart is functioning better and is in better health. We have included a video here that will cover and instruct you in how to measure your heart rate. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello everyone and welcome. My name is David and I am one of the group members who contributed to this project. Through this video, we intend to show you how to properly measure your heart rate, specifically your resting heart rate. Your resting heart rate is the number of times your heart beats per minute while you are at rest. Resting heart rate gives us a small glimpse at how the heart muscle is functioning, and it is a good way to measure your fitness levels. An elevated heart rate tends to be a warning sign for certain heart-related conditions, so it is always a good idea to be very aware of your heart rate. There are several tools that we can make use of to measure and track our heart rate. The first is to use a fitness tracker, such as an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. I have demonstrated one of those options here. But these can be rather expensive options and are not always available. So in most cases, a stopwatch or a wristwatch will do just fine. So when is the best time to check our resting heart rate? It's usually in the morning right after we get up. That is the best time. Your body is still sort of in a relaxation mode right after you get up, and your heart rate is likely the lowest it will be all day. So that is the best time to check our resting heart rate. Another option is to check your heart rate about 5 to 10 minutes after relaxing or resting. Do not check it if you're like extremely stressed out or just got finished with a long walk or working. Give yourself time to cool down and then begin. To check your heart rate, you must begin with your palm facing up. Next, place your index and middle fingers together and then place them on the thumb side of your wrist, along the line where your watch band would normally be worn. You should feel a pulse. You can also find a pulse along the side of your neck about 1 to 2 inches below your ear. Set your timer for 30 seconds and then count the number of beats you feel during that time period. Now, after the 30 seconds is finished, double that number of beats to get the number of beats per minute, and that is your resting heart rate. Now, it's important to remember that there are certain factors that weigh into our resting heart rate. It does vary from day to day. Things like stress, certain medications, smoking, excessive caffeine, and excessive alcohol intake can all increase our resting heart rate, but there are ways to reduce it. One of the best ways is to exercise regularly. Now, I'm not saying you have to commit to a gym membership or an exercise program today. Just try to fit more physical activity in your daily lives and you will notice improvements. Thank you all for watching our video, and we hope you found it very informative.
Now that you know how to track your resting heart rate, you'll be better able to monitor your heart rate during physical activity. I want you to direct your attention to the right side of this figure that we've provided for you, and it has your average max heart rate. Your max heart rate is calculated by taking the number 220 and subtracting your age. So for example, if you take 220 minus an age of 50, you're going to have 170 beats per minute. That would be your average max heart rate. If you are exercising and you happen to get to that amount, to 170 or exceed it to even higher, you're going to want to slow down. We want to keep our heart rate in that target heart rate zone of anywhere from 50 to 85% of our max heart rate. So for a 50-year-old person, they're going to want to keep their heart rate between 85 and 145 beats per minute while doing physical activity.
Now that we've got all of the how to measure your heart rate, and all the importance of why physical activity is very important to us, let's talk about some potential barriers that we might have. So here's a list of potential barriers that everyone might have. These are pretty common, so you may face these barriers or you may not. But the first one being low motivation. A lot of us trying to start doing physical activity might not have the motivation for it. Also, people could be self-conscious about their weight, worried about potential injuries. So if you are one of those that is susceptible to injuries or muscle tears or anything like that, that's definitely a concern. Weather conditions can also be a barrier if you're wanting to exercise outside and it's cold, rainy, snowy, anything like that can definitely stop you from trying to be physically active. Unsafe living environments and also not enough time are definitely two other pretty big barriers that people are faced with, especially the time management. It can be kind of hard with, working from 9 to 5 each day and then also trying to eat and to the transport time it takes you to get from work and back. It's just, there sometimes can be difficult to find time to work out. So let's get thinking again. For this activity, we want you to think about your own personal barriers when it comes to physical activity. These can be from the lists that we previously mentioned, but you can also try and think up your own ideas as well. So we'd like you to think about at least 2 to 3 potential barriers and explain why they are barriers to you. You may write these down if you have a pen and paper available, but we really just want you to think about what barriers you have so you can try and brainstorm ways that you can overcome them. So again, you can take this time, pause the video, and think about 2 to 3 potential barriers that you might have and why. Thank you for watching part 1 of our video and learning why physical activity is important. So be sure to turn into part 2, our next education video, to assess and learn different ways you can increase your physical activity levels.